go here.
Okay, Steve says he's on his way.
Okay. We'll start the show anyway. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the New Media Show. Of course, my name is Todd Cochran, and we're going to be joined in a few minutes by a guest, but we are going to get the show started here. Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing okay, Todd. It's crazy what's going on. This whole subscription thing that's bubbled up in the space has really kind of scrambled a lot of things.
Well, there's a lot of people that are all excited about it. So
Yeah,
we will
right.
we will see though. Is anyone tempering expectations, or is everyone thinking they're going to get rich?
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
question, right?
Yeah, I think yeah. I think that the expectations could be outshining the opportunity, but I guess time will tell. This is a kind of, it isn't like, premium subscriptions is something new all of a sudden. I think what's new about it is that it's getting a lot more attention. Um, a lot of the bigger companies are really embracing it, so that's what's really bringing it to the forefront. And and it's I think in a lot of ways it's probably good because it can support as the technology gets better for these premium offerings. That means some revenue coming into content creators to fund the development of higher quality, better produced content in the medium. So I think it's an opportunity for all levels of content creators to up their game a little bit and connect with community at a deeper level. And I think it does kind of accent some of the strengths of the medium as you look to where the opportunities are in the future.
Well, I think that for a segment of shows, this is going to work out okay. But I go back to what I said last week. And, let's just preface this with Spotify is not, it's a limited invite right now. You just, not everyone's going to get on there. I think they are launching with 12 partners. So it's not like you're going to be able to jump on there. And plus, you got to put your show on Anchor to be able to have a premium show over there. So that's a negative in itself. But I think what's going to end up happening here is that you're going to have some that are going to jump into this and commit to doing a whole bunch of content. Because once you go this way, first subscriber, if you have one subscriber, you're committed to putting content out.
Yeah.
So, what is your if you're a podcaster, you got to think about this and say, what is my minimum success metric I'm going to use to start doing premium? Here comes our guest. We can hear you, but we can't see you.
So for those listening,
And I got a,
our
yeah,
our
hopefully the line noise, I've got a lot of line noise with you, Steve.
our
Oh,
guest here
we lost him. He's coming back.
is Steve Wilson, who's a longtime Apple podcast um, fellow that worked on the editorial side in the U.S. for many years with podcast featuring, and then moved over to Apple Podcast Marketing for many years as well, working around driving marketing to the podcast in the Apple organization and externally. And then more recently, he left Apple to go to work for a company called Q Code Media. So hopefully we can get him in here. He's been actually, I've been talking to Steve Wilson for many years about, being able to come on shows like the New Media Show to talk about podcasting because he's been around this medium for so long. And it's great to have him on the show. Steve Wilson, thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, happy to be with you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you okay.
Yeah.
Just getting a little bit of noise, but I think we're okay. It'll level out. Sometimes Skype does that. So, how you been?
Good, great. Great to see you guys. And yeah, long time listener, first time caller. Excited to be with you both.
In your previous occupation, you were constrained. You couldn't come on shows.
Yeah, it's exciting to be able to be out there and chat with the community a little bit more beyond just how we all got to see each other and talk at conferences. So excited to be with you guys and chat a little bit about podcasting and Q Code and the industry as a whole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe Rob, what we should do is just let Steve tell us about Q Code to beginning, and then we'll drag him back to the premium podcasting topic. So,
Yeah.
why don't you give us
Yeah.
the 411 on what you're doing over at Q Code?
Well, sure. Thanks, guys. So yeah, QCode, I'm Chief Strategy Officer. QCode really specializes in immersive scripted fiction podcasts. So these are fully sound designed scripted shows that often have, amazing stories, A-list celebrity talent, and are produced at a really high technical level. We mix and master at Dolby Atmos and do some really cool things in the audio. For listeners who haven't experienced fiction before, these are shows that kind of harken back to the old radio days. War of the Worlds is an apt analogy for what people are familiar with. But rather than using the sort of old techniques of production, coconuts and washboards and those kinds of things, these are, produced at a really high level and an amazing listening experience. Something that really is a great addition to everyone's like diverse podcast listening experience. Fiction's, trying to do something a little bit different. Prior to joining QCode, I spent a long time at Apple, where I did editorial, partner relations, and marketing on Apple Podcasts. Before that, I actually still worked in podcasts, but in Apple's education group, where I worked on iTunes U, which was, an educational podcasting platform with college courses and lectures and those kinds of things as well.
Yeah. And that's all been folded into the Apple Podcast platform now, the whole educational side. I mean, how important? I'm just curious. How important is the educational side to Apple as far as working with the universities? I know back then they were working pretty closely with like Stanford and a lot of the big colleges. Is that still going on? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, I want to just obviously be really careful in all of our
Yeah.
conversations to make it clear,
Sure.
like I'm not speaking on Apple's behalf, and
Yeah.
so as you
Yeah.
ask how important is it, it's hard for me to sort of provide that kind of answer. But
Right.
what I would just say is, what was exciting about iTunes U and the project that they had there, it was a project that really saw the opportunity in mobile learning in the very early days. So this project
Right.
started back in 2006, I want to say. It was
Mm-hmm.
2006, 2007, not too long after podcasting itself really started. And it was the result of, Apple and Duke University thinking about how the iPod, the original iPod, could be used in mobile learning. And it's
Right.
funny, it sounds a little antiquated now as we have the internet in our pocket with the iPhone. But this was a really early attempt at how, students could go around campus with language learning and college lectures and really use podcasting in that educational context. Uh, I don't need to tell you guys that same feeling I think is persisted, and so many universities are back to creating podcasts and thinking about how
Mhm.
audio and storytelling is still fundamental to what they do in their curriculum. So, and Apple has a long history in education going back way before that, of course, as well. So it was a special project to get the chance to work on, and
Yeah.
uh, the exciting thing is, yeah, that all that content is now still available in podcasts, and from what I've seen, those educational institutions continue to create great shows and podcasts.
That's great. So why did you jump into fiction in the podcasting space? Was it more about where you saw the next big opportunity?
Yeah, look, I would consider myself fortunate because I got to work with so many different people in the podcast industry. So many great publishers became friends, and I think as I thought about my personal journey and my career, I always loved working with partners across all those jobs I told you about too. And I always felt like it would be really fun to go to the other side of the table, to go from the platform side to the publisher side. And QCode was a really special place. The CEO of the company is a guy named Rob Herding. He spent a long time working with amazing talent in Hollywood, and he had a real vision to create QCode as a place that could tell new kinds of stories. In Hollywood, it's really hard to tell new stories, and I think as much as we love a good sequel or reboot of a favorite franchise, it's exciting to think about how the next character that you love can be born, right? And I've been introducing my kids. They're in fifth and second grade. I've been introducing them to the Marvel movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, and I think what I see in QCode was this really cool opportunity to create new kinds of stories and new characters, and a vision, the idea that what if the next Spider-Man or the next Iron Man doesn't come from a comic book but comes from a podcast, and it's a character that we love that can live in lots of places, and so I thought that was really fun, exciting, and challenging, and fiction personally was a delight. I would credit so many amazing creators out there who've been doing work in this arena for a long time. Rob, we were talking about Casey Wayland the other day and what he's done with
Yep.
We're Alive, and folks like Lauren Shippen and Paul Bay, the guys who created Limetown, and folks at Panoply who created The Message. So many people have been doing great work in fiction for a long time, and I just couldn't stop myself from feeling like it was a great time to surf the growing wave in podcast and really be able to have that chance to be on the publisher side and bring my platform experience to a company out there making great shows.
So what do you see as kind of the challenge going forward for fiction to find its place in podcasting? I know that the medium has been built primarily on reality-based stories. Is there something that about the aspects of what you're working on or elements of it that will, you think, make it really stand out from the deep, I guess, content that's being created around reality storytelling?
Yeah, I think you're really talking about education that needs to be done in some ways, and I often saw the need to getting people in podcasts in general into the medium. They have to have a great gateway show or experience. It's interesting to me that in other mediums, fiction is such a big portion of the content that we consume. In TV, there's sports and news, there's 60 Minutes, there's late night shows like Conan O'Brien, who's also in podcasts. But yeah, a big portion of what we consume is Game of Thrones and Walking Dead and these favorite, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, these favorite franchises that we like to tune into. And it's odd to me in some ways that fiction is so underrepresented in podcasting. But yeah, I think we're going to need to do further education and provide that great, exciting first experience for people to understand what this can offer, in addition to the narrative nonfiction or chat shows or roundtables or all the other amazing kind of podcasts that we all listen to today too.
But don't you think that the reason there's not as much fiction as there is just it's hard to do? It's just, there's a lot of work in putting fiction together.
It's incredibly hard. Yeah, I think to do really well, it takes a lot of skill and time. You're not just you're not just thinking about the story itself, but also how the affordances of audio can really bring it to life, or what you can't do, right? In an audio environment around an acted show. And I think that's why you've seen an evolution in these kinds of stories. And in many fiction shows, there's a reason or a conceit as to why it's being recorded. It might be, playing on the public radio voice or journalist investigating a story. And Limetown and The Message, or even Blackout from QCode, really relied on that. This sort of, podcast host who's telling the story, and then you kind of got into the fictional elements. But increasingly, I think you're seeing more and more shows where you're a fly on the wall, just like any other movie that you'd experience. And at QCode, we have a show called Unwanted, which is a 80s action comedy that's sort of like, Beverly Hills Cop or Pineapple Express. And yeah, you're just sitting in the scene with these two guys as they're joking around and making their plans to go on their adventure. So I think it's hard to do. It can be expensive. It's time consuming to do well in terms of all the coordination that takes with different actors and all of those kinds of pieces. I also think there'll be more and more fiction as there's more and more understanding from audiences in terms of what's out there and the whole range of shows like we talked about before.
So, Rob, I just want to ask Steve, were you hearing Rob okay, or are you hearing any crunchy thing coming from him through the audio? Was it clear to you?
Rob is sounding okay to me. How do I sound to you guys?
Yeah, everyone's good. It's just so that makes me feel better. So I know it's just on my end, not going out live. So go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, so you were talking about sound design as an important part of this, and that's been around, radio for a long time. The War of the Worlds kind of stuff, where you create this kind of reality experience, and Todd and I have talked about some kind of technology, the binaural recording stuff, and I know you guys are playing around with that. The rubber ears stuff that creates a different kind of listening experience. I mean, how important is Foley and these type of different more advanced kind of audio experience recording technologies to what you guys are doing?
Well, I think we're certainly investing a lot in that side, on the technical side. We've got a partnership with Dolby, and we've been, like I said before, mastering all of our shows in Dolby Atmos. This is so bleeding edge that the podcast platforms don't actually support distribution of Atmos files. There's a level of decoding that needs to happen on the app side, and as of right now, we've been making these files, mastering them in Dolby Atmos, but that's not the files we're distributing if you go and listen to them today. There's all kinds of important things that go into capturing audio in the right way. Those cool human heads that you mentioned, Rob, I think are so neat, and they, as I understand it, mimic the thickness of our heads and how audio doesn't just go in one microphone, right, but is heard through our own heads.
Right.
I'm going to quickly get out of my technical depth here, but the team at QCode is incredible. We've got folks that have worked on music videos and movies and TV shows that you would know. I got to brag on, our head of music is a guy named Darren Johnson, who, is a classically trained pianist. And I was doing some stuff at work after I joined QCode, and I Googled him, I think, to look for his Twitter account. And I found his Wikipedia page where I learned that he was touring with Paula Abdul and Discovered by Miles Davis. This guy is incredible, and he does all the sound design for our shows. He's even, writes original music. He was friends with Rick Astley of the Rick Roll fame, and did an original song for our show Unwanted, the one I mentioned before. So, this is a really fun and creative aspect of what we're doing at QCode is really pouring ourselves into the craft of making great audio and different kinds of experiences that I think listeners are going to really enjoy.
So I think this is a good kind of segue to talk about premium too, to some degree. I mean, is the timing, you think, of what's happening with premium kind of ride really well with what you guys are doing?
I think so. I mean, I think, as we all know, look, we've been in this medium together for a long time. I think, the three of us and your listeners would consider ourselves people ahead of the curve in terms of the mainstream awareness and audience that's now in podcasts. But I think, what's exciting about the moment we're in is you're getting less and less of those questions that people used to ask. You remember when people used to ask, hey, do you listen to podcasts? Which I've always found to be just a funny question. You never would ask somebody, do you read books or do you watch TV? But yeah, with podcasts being more and more mainstream, I think with real, audience, there's been more and more monetization. With more monetization, there's better and better content investments, and it's that great virtuous circle. And so I'm really excited about what we've seen in the last couple weeks from Apple, is also, some of the announcements from Spotify, Facebook, and others. Podcasting is mainstream. And I think what we're getting here overall, I would say, is more and more options to be able to ensure that this art, this medium is financially sustainable. And also, I would say great independent creators have that opportunity to, go full time. I'm sure that we all know favorite indie podcasters who still have to work a day job and they would rather be doing podcasts full time. And I'm hopeful that part of what we're seeing here, and we'll be looking back at this, moment 6 months from now, a year from now, and many of those people, if they want, will be able to kind of pursue their professional careers in this medium by the unlocked new monetization options that are available.
I just worry, and I guess call it the pessimist in me, is that you're still going to have a significant audience to do premium to make it work. And those shows that have significant audiences already are running advertising. So I still worry about, the guy that has 1,000 listeners per episode, whether or not he or she is going to be able to make premium work. I hope I'm wrong in that thought process because it maybe end up discouraging people even more, or discouraging people because, if you commit to doing this, then, let's say you're going to do it for a year and you have 5 subscribers on premium. Well, that's going to be pretty mind numbing, I guess would be the best word for it.
I definitely see that concern. What I would think about though is, you have to really drill into those situations. As that podcast that has 1,000 listeners might be very different than another podcast
That's
that has
true.
1,000 listeners, right? And if you are somebody who's creating something maybe really high quality, or maybe what I should say is how high value in terms of the information that you're providing or the value you're offering through maybe a premium, member only kind of podcast, there might be ways to monetize at a higher level. If you're a mindfulness podcast and you make a huge difference to those 1,000 listeners, you might be able to charge, $10 a month, $20 a month
That's
for
true.
your member only access. And as you know, those kind of numbers might be a little bit different. So, depending on what kind of content you're creating, I think, and what you offer for that value, I think it's actually possible more than ever to think about building a sustainable business. There's those books out there that talk all about, 1,000 true fans, right?
Right.
And so if you're the podcast that has that true 1,000 fans, you might be able to do something pretty cool here.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, you might not be at that scale where advertising makes sense.
Right.
I also want to be clear, QCode is primarily funded through advertising, and we still see that, moving forward as going to be an important part of our business. And so QCode Plus is really representing just another additional path to monetization, not necessarily one that is taking its place. And I think that's one of the things that I really love about Apple's approach here is that they haven't disrupted the current ad market. They've been, I think, additive in the way that they have had these features and tools available in the App Store for a long time. That's really a good way to think about this is, they're really unlocking App Store-like features for podcasters. So I think it's overall additive to what QCode is doing, and it's not necessarily going to be just premium, exclusive subscription audio. It's going to be both and.
And I think too, there's definitely that as well. I've always said if my audience would just step up for $2 a month, key is if, man, I could, if this audience stepped up at $2 a month, Rob and I might actually, heck, Rob, we might be able to do this full time. We might be able to step away from our day jobs. I'm just kidding here.
But then we wouldn't know anything when we do the show.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's true though.
And now it's more than, think about how many people already have their, credit card on file with Apple and Face ID and Touch ID, right? Rather than having to go register for a second site and handle all that billing or trust that, I just worried my credit card's going to get leaked online, right? I think what's cool here is it's going to be seamless in a way that none of us have experienced before in the podcast industry.
True. That it's as simple as buying an app, so
Yeah.
same principle. I just, but I am going to be curious to see how it all shakes out. I know there's a land rush of people that want to be going on this, and we saw the demo last week. I don't know, Rob, if you were on that call or not, where you got to see the demo of the new platform. But
of Apple? Yeah, from Apple. Yeah.
And here's, it was the funny part. I was talking to my team because we have a list of stuff that we want to do for some of the stuff. And I'm like, it was just like, they got it. They finished it. They did it. Check, 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 check. And then I'm at the end, I'm like, shit, I don't need to build this now, because they just cleared the deck with me. But I think that the real opportunity is that because other platforms are now introducing premium, then you're not going to be completely reliant on Apple. You'll be able to do some stuff on Spotify if you so choose, if you have an audience over there. And there's still going to be opportunity for companies like Rob and I, because, the divergence of how people listen, and being able to access stuff is pretty interesting, because some audiences have bigger, number of folks who listen on Overcast than they are on, whatever app du jour. So there's still room for everybody. And you're right, it's additive, and I don't think they've disrupted anything, but they've definitely it's a big bang here. It's like people are getting hit in the head with a hammer now, and now they see a new shiny object. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess,
I was going to say really quickly.
Go ahead.
I think one of the things that is funny is, from my time at Apple, I guess what I would say, every company has their own approach to how they do business and how they talk about it. Very rarely does Apple announce things on the timeline that people want. And, but what I'll say is they try and be really considerate and do things the right way in the right time. I remember when people were always up in arms about copy and paste on the iPhone, and distinctly how people are like, oh, the iPhone doesn't have copy and paste. Are they crazy? The Palm Pre has copy and paste, right? And that's always stuck with me, because I think if you look at it, the method that Apple released for copy and paste is the same method it's been on iOS since the very beginning. And so it's about doing things for them at the right time in the right way, and very considered. I think on the industry broadly, I'm so excited to see more people participating. And even on a personal level, I've known the teams over at Spotify, as an example, for a while. They're great people. And, now that I'm at QCode, I get to work with them. And they're fantastic people, great partners. I think they're being really considerate and thoughtful about what they're doing in podcasts. And, it'll be interesting to see how these diverse, offerings across the companies are, just making it better and better for podcast listeners and better for podcast makers. So, really excited for what they can do. And then also with Marco at Overcast, I think, he's always pushing the edge in terms of technology and the kinds of things that he's doing in his app. So, QCode, and I think many publishers out there are all interested in seeing these things happen and evolve, and, have more and more options and better ways to give these kinds of solutions to listeners.
Yeah, I'm just curious why we didn't see this happen a couple of years ago, and why we're seeing it happen now. Is there anything that either one of you guys think, or was it just a roadmap plan? Because obviously when Apple makes a announcement like this, and it's always been the case, it's been an earthquake to the medium, because it's so important, because Apple did it. But is there something, or is this something that's more internal to Apple, or is it more about what's being seen in the marketplace, do you think?
I think that as far as the premium goes, if you look who started it, there's been 2 or 3 companies that have had some premium podcasting, and then Patreon had their thing.
Right.
So, and they still do.
It's been brewing for a long time.
It's been brewing.
Yeah.
Well, here's what podcasters are what's their two things they're trying to figure out? They're trying to grow audience,
Right.
and how do I pay for this thing? And I think Apple has listened. Apple can't help them grow per se, but they can help them make some money. So I think, if you listen to the discussion, I think, and basically I don't know if I can even repeat what was said during the presentation we went to, but they've been listening to the creators. So
Right.
they've been responsive to that. And, as Steve says, maybe they don't move at the speed people want, but, boy, when they come on, it's definitely makes the news because it's big. Well, you got an 800-pound gorilla that's brought, a whole world to podcasting. Let's be frank, podcasting, the whole world came to podcasting largely because of Apple.
Right.
And yet as many people like to poo-poo it from time to time, we would not be here if they had not introduced podcasts into iTunes in 2005. And everyone else is largely playing catch up. Now Spotify thinks they're ahead, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I guess I just have to be a little non-answer on this question as you asked about why it didn't happen earlier, Rob. But look, I would just say things take time, and the thing I appreciate is, as you look at the tools in detail, there's so many cool things that you can do and think about your pricing on a global level, and the localization and the scale of this. I think that's all really cool. Can't quite answer the first part of your question in terms of timing, but it's great we have it now is what I'll say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's interesting though, how this is going to change the dynamic in the marketplace, because there's been so much emphasis over the last few years around advertising, and I just wonder if this is going to take a little bit of the focus off of advertising for a while. And I'm just, I don't know. I mean, advertising is a tough thing, Todd.
Rob, what
it's
this
a tough
gives
thing for most podcasters.
What this gives,
most podcasters can do this.
Yeah. What it gives is the 90% of people or 95% of podcasts that don't have advertising gives them an opportunity to easily try a monetization path of support through premium content.
That's my point. Right. That's my point. How it takes, the emphasis, because I mean, Todd, we've been saying all along, and this medium, and Steve, you've been around long enough to know this too. This medium is a fairly non-commercial advertising type of medium, right? At its core, and this does kind of play into audience relationships with the content creators, and that is more fundamental, I think, to the medium. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Well, I think I hear a lot of what you're saying, Rob, and agree with you both. I think that this is going to provide opportunities and a pathway for those creators who aren't yet at the scale, to attract an advertiser on their own. Or I also love that this gives them the flexibility to not join a network if they don't want. I think some podcasters didn't really want to join a network, but had to be able to access advertising dollars because it'd be grouped in aggregate with others to be able to sell a brand deal. And this just gives them the choice. And I think that choice is great. What I will say is the advertising side, as I mentioned before, really continues. I've spent the last couple of weeks with the team at QCode preparing for the IAB podcast upfronts, which many companies in the industry are participating in, coming up in mid-May. And, that's been a really fun experience preparing for that and talking about how we're going to position ourselves and reach great brands to want to come in and partner with QCode. So I think that this just gives that flexibility. There are some things, and I should mention, with QCode, maybe a little bit more about what we're going to do with subscriptions. Would that be helpful to talk about?
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
So with QCode, we're launching QCode Plus, and QCode Plus is, going to really allow us to offer bonus content to loyal fans and listeners. Things like creative roundtables with the show creators or the talent, behind the scenes making of kind of docu pieces as you're used to seeing in TV and film. We can also offer creative things as well. Maybe it's alternate endings to our stories that we could get into. Over time, we can give the super fans the chance to binge and listen to our shows early. And, what I'm also really excited to think about too is, there's some things in fiction we want to make, but, one of the challenges as it does relate to an advertising model is, you really need to be releasing a fictional show with 8 to 10 episodes to have enough ad inventory for an advertiser to be financially viable. It's much harder to do that if your show is 1 hour or 1 to 3 episodes.
Right.
But if we think about that content as being something that our QCode Plus members will help monetize, as that might be something that's exclusive to that subscription, we can make all different kinds of stories at different lengths of time, because we're not having to design for the monetization path necessarily as much. So, I would just point that out for other creators and people out there thinking about this. There are some really unique ways that you can consider how monetization fits into what you do. Maybe for you guys, and I don't mean to pitch you, maybe what it is a listener feedback hour, frankly, that is exclusive and, exclusive to members, where you could bring on a listener who wants feedback on their show, and they're getting the advice of Rob and Todd here on their show specifically, but that kind of feedback usually translates and is valuable to other people. There's all kinds of, I think, creative ways you can think about it beyond just doing another episode of your show, but making it a whole new format, maybe within your show.
I think that's a terrific comment and point here, and I think that's where Todd, you and I are going to get peppered, I think, with questions. Well, what is the pathway that I, as an independent podcaster, can utilize premium? What kind of things can I do? And I think Steve just raised some terrific ideas, and that's a great topic for us to talk about, to give people ideas on what they can do.
Rob, what the problem is we would do the first review and rip somebody so bad that no one would be.
You would, Todd.
People would be scared to come on and have that discussion. I'm just joking, but no, it is true though, because I do this 4 or 5 times a week with our current podcasters. Yeah. I have I do 30 minutes with them talking about just a boom boom, give them 5 action items out of a 30-minute call to things you can do, and often or not, though, it might become a little bit boring, Rob, because I find that I'm often giving the same 5 pieces of advice on every call, and it doesn't always. Sometimes I'm like, "Wow, you're doing that. Oh, you're doing that. Oh, you are doing that." And then you're like, "Okay, let's get deeper in the weeds." And then, is it really a content problem, not a tech? You're doing everything right with your website and all the other stuff. So sometimes
think about the passive version of that too. That could be pretty cool for you to create, Todd. Like the masterclass 10 episode piece that would just be a part of what you do potentially. I don't know.
Interesting.
I think, the solution could be different for all different kinds of shows. I was thinking about other kinds of categories in media that are really fun and interesting too, like travel, or even things like weddings, and wedding planning, or parenting and people getting ready to have their first kid. There's so many cool analogies out there to other kinds of media, and books and things like that we love. That I don't know. I think that there's got to be a lot of people out there who are experts in these different fields that might not have necessarily been able to scale with the right advertisers, but it's just, again, high value content that would be worth a subscription to get access to.
And they made that platform so that you can do that. You're not just limited to doing one premium show. You can set up multiples, and you can make a choice for each one and what the monetization path is. So many free, so many premium, a sample, then it goes to the, it's free for a certain amount of time, then it goes behind the paywall, vice versa. So there's all kinds of ways to mix it up. So no matter what your model is, maybe you pay for the series, not for a single episode, so it's the same type of, so they've made it smart on the pathways you can choose to monetize the content. And then it's just up to you to make sure you market it and, point it out and link to it. And
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when I saw this announcement happen and the focus in the industry, the first thing I thought of was um, the distinction that Audible has in the market, right, with audiobooks, and then seeing that with what you're doing, Steve, and how those are very similar to each other. Is there going to be a convergence, do you think, of
No.
audiobooks into drama productions more because of this? And the distinction of a audiobook catalog goes away. It becomes a part of the podcasting, premium podcasting experience.
Well, if I was an author and had a podcast, I would have that book as my premium offering
Right.
for
Exactly.
sure. And why use Audible if you're building your brand around your podcast? Or
Well,
maybe it's an addition too.
Yeah, and you look at what Amazon's doing right now with blending the Amazon podcast, the Amazon Music and then Audible together, and then creating a free account. So they're basically creating an environment there within Audible where these worlds are colliding with each other more. Yeah.
Yeah. The philosophy major in me loves these distinctions around language, and it's kind of all blending together in media, right? When you think about a long piece on YouTube, how is that different from a TV show, and where is Netflix content different from a movie? And I'm not sure I have the answer in terms of how it's conceived of, and some of it's just language. But to your point about audiobooks broadly, there's a lot of great thinking out there in the industry. I would shout out Pushkin Industries and what Jacob Weisberg and Malcolm Gladwell are doing, over there. They've done some really amazing work around Malcolm's releases and making them feel much more engaging than what I think people are typically used to in a in an audiobook that just has a single narrator and not a lot of sound design. So those guys are really, I think, at the bleeding edge and deserve a lot of credit for how they're thinking about specifically, because of Malcolm's, distinction as a fantastic author, how that kind of has bled into the podcast world. So, so much room for experimentation and different approaches here as people make more and more high quality stuff.
Yeah, and as audiobooks start to be produced more like what you're doing with QCode too, potentially.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah, and we have QCode has a number of shows that have come from, apart from original scripts and podcasting. QCode has adapted written pieces before. Like the Left Right Game was a viral Reddit thread that was written by a copywriter out of the UK named Jack Anderson that just blew up on Reddit. And QCode adapted that into a podcast that got incredibly popular. The podcast is fantastic, and now Jack is writing the TV show version of the series for Amazon. So, like I was sort of saying at the top, and I just saw Mjolnir behind you there, Todd. We should get the next Thor, I think, out of podcast, guys. Characters again that we love and want to just see them in all different forms and facets, and they might start as a podcast and become a TV show or become a comic book, and that's happened a lot. Lauren Shippen just released her book. The guys at the Adventure Zone, Travis, Justin, and Griffith McElroy have released the Adventure Zone comic books, and that's what I love. Podcasting is such an amazing medium, and I think we're just seeing incredible stories kind of coming out and coming to different life in different ways right now.
So do you see QCode doing a little bit like what the Wondery platform did, as being a source of TV shows as you look to the future?
Well, QCode's definitely had a good record there, and also credit to the Wondery team, fantastic folks over there. I've loved working with those guys in my prior life and still today, and incredible group of people. At QCode, we have a number of projects in development. I've lost track of the number here, but all of our shows are on kind of a path to adaptation to other mediums, whether that is TV or film or books or even stage. Theater coming out of podcasts is a pretty cool notion as well. But things like Dirty Diana and the Left Right Game, like as I mentioned, we just announced our show Edge of Sleep is about to start filming as a TV show here very soon. So, that's not the primary purpose of what QCode's doing, but I think there's so much appetite out there in the world for great original stories that fans love, that I think that's why we're seeing a lot of that Hollywood adaptation into other forms, because they know how ravenous podcast fans are for these stories, and it's a more sure bet, right? When it can be a big financial risk to try and start something new. When they see how excited podcast fans are for these shows, I think that's why they're adapting, a lot of nonfiction as well as fiction into these other mediums.
I was talking with a podcaster Tuesday. What is today? Wednesday. I guess it was yesterday. And he does a fan fiction podcast, and I got to talking to because he's been doing it for fun at this point. He did his first 10. He did his 10 episodes of what that particular storyline was going to be, and he's got two more in work. He's like, well, now I'd like to make this a little bit sustainable, and I'm not worried. He's not worried about making millions of dollars, but he'd like to have a little supplementary income. He's close to retirement age, and I just, I had mentioned, advertising away, premium content's away, and I said, have you built enough people on your first series to be able to promote the second series premium wise? And so that was a discussion too, because I think what podcasters are going to have to start thinking about is their strategy on their transition from having free to be able to start offering something premium, and then being able to have enough of a funnel to get people over there. People that are savvy marketers already will probably be able to make that transition, but I don't think a lot of podcasters are. So I foresee a lot of master classes on how to make that transition to, and to be honest with you, I kind of don't like that word. It's yeah, I don't know why, but anyway, there's going to be, people are going to have to figure out how to make that shift while continuing to provide the free to promote the premium. It's double the work.
Yeah.
Or more.
I think certainly a lot of opportunity out there for people who can give great guidance in this time. I remember there was a really famous iOS development course that came out of Stanford on how to write, I guess it was iPhone OS at the time, but it was how to write apps back in the early days. And millions of developers actually learned how to code using that course from Stanford. And so, yeah, maybe it's not a master class, maybe it's something a little bit different. But I was thinking back on that, guys, and I was thinking about how, is there going to be somebody who's going to step up and make that definitive guide that's going to help people through this time? Because you're right, there's a lot of education needed as the industry continues to professionalize and has that opportunity. So
we've just gave a bunch of you listening to this a whole bunch of ideas. So Rob and I and Steve will take 5%. Thank you very much.
That's right. Put me on as an advisor. I'll do it.
But
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rob.
Go ahead and finish. I was just going to ask you to talk a little bit about some of the show concepts that you guys are working on over there at QCode, and what the thinking is behind some of these productions. I don't know. I know that you're working on a couple of new ones here that you're just about to launch, or you've launched already. Why don't you tell us about them a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, broadly, QCode really started with, what they call genre. So it's a lot of sci-fi, horror, sort of fantasy. And over time, it's expanded out to other genres as well. Kids and family. There's a kid show called Hank the Cowdog, which was by the way, was a popular book series, beloved book series for many folks from the South and from Texas. That show actually starred Matthew McConaughey as this, friendly ranch dog teaching life lessons. But there's also been Dirty Diana, which is a female erotica starring Demi Moore. And, like I said, an action comedy, Unwanted. So we're really expanding out into something for everybody, for all ages and all genres. We want people to get into fiction regardless of their interests, in the same way that, there's all different kinds of books and TV and all those kinds of things. As we move forward, I'm trying to think of all the shows we've announced. We're going to release over 15 shows this year. QCode's catalog is currently at around 12. So pretty significant growth from us in terms of what we're creating. And, that's a combination of, new original stories as well as new seasons of some of our, fans' most favorite series. Sometimes actually creating second seasons is really hard. And so actually QCode hasn't done that just yet, but we did announce Blackout Season 2 is coming back. Blackout Season 2 is coming, and its series is coming back very soon. Can't yet announce a release date, but it's coming up quite quickly. We're doing a show called Edith with Rosamund Pike, where she stars Edith Wilson, the famous wife of Woodrow Wilson, who was sort of secretly president of the United States while Woodrow was incapacitated.
Right.
This is really fun. We're doing this in partnership with Crooked Media, and so it's got a really fun political, satirical edge to it. And you could kind of think of it as sort of like a Weekend at Bernie's meets like Veep, if you know both that show and that movie. So it's really a fun series, and got a number of other ones in the works that again range from comedy to sci-fi and kids and family to drama. So. We're trying to put something out there for all ages and all interests.
So how are you guys planning on, marketing and promoting these and getting the word out? Are you going to treat it kind of like, like a TV series or a movie or something like that? Or what's the overall strategy that you guys are looking to do to try and drive audience to these things? Just curious.
Yeah, I guess I'd say at a high level, we try and make these experiences for people and that they can participate in and be excited to be a part of. They're of course evergreen, right? But in the same way that we're all excited about, the latest episode of of a favorite series that's running on TV, we kind of want fans to have that same connection. And so we do things like invest heavily in the art and design side of the podcast, so it feels very cinematic. We want people to have some insight into the world that we're creating, but one of the things I would say is we also are mindful of the fact that part of the fun of these series is the ability to use your imagination, right? To go for a walk or to do those chores around the house and think about the character in the way that you imagine it in your mind, like a good book allows you to do. So we kind of balance out the art that we provide versus, again, leaving room for the listener's imagination. And on a more sort of like tactical level, we invest in social media, a lot of organic social media. We're building our newsletter. We're, trying to do fun eventized series like on Instagram Live and Clubhouse to, engage with fans and listeners. And yeah, trying to build these up as something that you want to kind of be a part of and excited to participate in.
Hey, Rob. I lost you for a second. Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I can't hear you, Rob.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Something went.
Oh, one other thing I'll add while you're getting that figured out is on the sort of marketing growth side, always been a big proponent of where podcasters can collaborate, and I think that's something that people do through paid ads on other shows, and that's fantastic. But I'm really a big believer in how the community and individuals can be smart about how they partner with other shows where there's mutual interest and do things like crossovers and those kinds of collaborations that I would say actually YouTubers are quite famous for. And so, being able to, guest on other shows or maybe thematically align with other shows that are related to your content is something that I'm thinking a lot about. Where there might be a topic or a theme, that, fans of our show or fans of another might actually value from that collaboration between the two more thematically.
Did you recover your audio, Rob? Oh, that's weird. We can barely hear you. No, we can't. We can't hear you. Maybe try calling back in on Skype. It's just like it went, because I heard something go, and And then he went silent.
All right.
There you go. Good to go.
Is that better?
Better.
Okay. Huh. Who knows?
Well, guys, I'm so sorry for this, but I unfortunately have a meeting here at the hour, so I have to drop out. But thank you so much for having me on, and I've loved chatting with you. It's great to see you guys, and quite an honor to be here with you.
Real quick, Steve, what's the best way for people to reach you?
Oh man, I don't know. I guess I'll plug my own Twitter.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter. You can look me up at Stephen Wilson. So STEPHEN Wilson, and connected with both of you there. So maybe people can find me through you guys on Twitter.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for coming on, and best of luck over there at QCode.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye now.
Bye.
You know, Rob, the whole piece on being able to do fan fiction, that just every time I think about it, just, I'm not that type of a creator, so it's got to be challenging.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of diversity that's going to come out of fiction. I think fiction is going to unlock a bunch of areas that's going to bring into the podcasting medium a lot of different creators that haven't been involved in the medium. And I think that, what QCode is doing is going to, it's going to unlock a lot of different types of content, different types of community building. I think it's the natural evolution. I've been surprised that it's taken so long for fiction to get traction, but I think it really gets back, like you were saying earlier, Todd, that it's just expensive and complicated to produce these type of programs. And the best people to do it are folks out of Hollywood that are involved in script writing and having actors and having Foley production and all this kind of stuff, which, I think the timing for subscription, I think is perfect for that, to help it grow and develop. The question that I have is, are all of us, or a large number of us, going to, commit to a lot of different subscriptions? I know if you look at the podcast stats, the average podcast consumer only subscribes to 5 or 6, maybe 7 different shows, different series. Are they going to replace this? And I know that audiobooks have always been a big chunk of the audio listening side in this medium, to some degree, not as podcasts, but as audiobooks. I just wonder if bringing audiobooks together into podcasting is going to help podcasting because of all those audiobook listeners out there. Yeah,
that's interesting to see where it's going to go. Here's one thing I want to talk about, though, today, too, is Apple version 14.5 has come out.
That's coming.
I think it came, didn't it?
So it's been officially released?
Yeah, the iOS 14.5 has been released. I'm trying to get to...
I don't think I've upgraded yet.
Yeah, I did. And I wanted to see what our show looked like on the new... So, yeah, this is what it looks like on the new... For those of you that are watching, this is what the show looks like now. And I'm going to scroll in a little bit here and look at the... looking at a specific episode. I'm really happy here because some people are having challenges with their listings now with 14.5 and how they look, and it looks to me like Apple has definitely improved the... I'm going to go and look at my show. Yeah, this is beautiful. Absolutely freaking beautiful. So before this I'm really, really happy here. And if it's somebody...
Todd's showing his iPhone.
Yeah, so as I'm
video,
if I'm looking at Geek News Central, which has extensive show notes. everything is formatted really, really well, and it's got it
Pull it back a little bit.
it's recognizing more of the text
From the show notes.
from the show notes. It's
Okay.
following more of the HTML rules. So my show used to be really kind of not as great because I used all kinds of different little HTML functions. So
Mhm.
it looks really awesome. I mean, it looks really, really awesome. And I'm just loading up a few shows that I'm associated with besides this one. And I'm really, really happy with the new formatting in Apple Podcast from a show note standpoint. So
I'm still actually downloading to install it myself, so I can't.
Yeah. So if any of you are, have upgraded your iPhone, go look at your show listing under Apple Podcast 14.5. Look at your show notes specifically. Some of you that may have been having challenges before potentially are very happy today. And another thing too is they also are now linking to the episode website at the bottom of the show notes too. So you can actually get to the website right. So if I just click on this, bada bing, bada boom. I'm not connected to the internet right now because I don't want the phone rang earlier and you guys disappeared off the screen. So this is really nice what they've done here. And, that's the Blueberry Show. It's got a nice background. And then here's the podcast.
Do you think it's a simpler user experience compared to the other UI?
I think they've made it. I think they've cleaned it up a lot, and made this
because I thought the other one was a little confusing.
They've made the show listings. Well, it's okay. You click on a show, you see the episodes, you click play. It's not that complicated,
right?
But I never gave a lot of value to having, because the show notes were always kind of jacked from app to app depending on how they formatted it. And this to me is my biggest surprise of the day, to be honest with you. I had not looked before the show on how the formatting looked, and it looks freaking fabulous. So I'm really, really, really pleased with 14.5 and how it looks visually. And that's going to give them a big boost too.
Yeah. Well, I think it's been needed. I think, I've been using the Apple Podcast app for, the whole time. That's my primary driver. And I felt that it's been a little bit too confusing to use at times than what was needed. Right. So I'm hoping, that is cleaned up, because then we might see more adoption and of the Apple Podcast experience, which I think is my preferable experience anyway.
So when I hit browse, all the normal stuff is there that I would expect, but I very rarely browse. But they've got this new thing here. For the new and noteworthy's getting some major exposure. Top shows.
Well,
yeah.
I thought that they were dropping the new and noteworthy.
Well,
category.
Not what I can see. Still new and noteworthy's here. But
okay.
But they've got at the top, they've got featured shows: Invisible, Seizing Freedom, Slow Burn, Ship War.
Yeah, well, they've always had that. It's that top scrolling bar.
Yeah, so that scrolling bar hasn't changed at all. But I think they've done, at least in the library for your specific show, I'm very, very pleased with the way this looks right now. And it shows a published date. You can click more. It brings up more information about the show. Again, episode website. I don't even have to go. Yeah, it goes. Let me click on that. Boom. Takes me right. And it takes me to the right episode on New Media Show. It takes me to the right to the episode page. So that's something that's nice as well. So, although they say they did get our frequency as bi-weekly.
Oh, did they? Bi-weekly?
Yeah, bi-weekly.
I guess it was. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, everything looks good on this. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with that. And of course, if you've upgraded to iOS 14.5, don't remember now, go into privacy. You can opt out of being tracked on a whole bunch of apps now, specifically Facebook. You can turn all that stuff off so they can't track you no more. They're going to try to opt you in, opt out so that they can't track you. All those new privacy features they've added to 14.5.
I do wonder how that impacts the user's experience, though.
On Facebook?
Yeah.
Well, it just means
if it's better, does it make it better?
Well, it makes
do we think it makes it?
It was all
less
about
relevant?
advertising and retargeting and all that stuff. So you can't be retargeted no more if you choose not to be tracked.
No, that's not my question. My question is more, they use that data for relevancy.
Oh, they
right?
do. They Rob, they use that. They feed us in their news feed what they think. They're going to still see what
Right.
we're liking. They just now can't. They
Can't
don't.
share
They're
it.
not going to have as much insights into us. I think that's good.
Oh, I think it is too. I just
Yeah.
wonder how it's going to impact
Well, they're not happy about it. I can tell you that.
the wall that we see of sources of content.
Well, we need to. They can mind their own damn business as far as I'm concerned. I'm adult enough to seek out what I want to seek out on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, there's just always a trade-off, right?
yeah, there is. And I think it's, as much as Facebook's complained about it, it's a pretty good trade-off.
Mhm.
Hey, we did get some new jingles in,
We did.
let's see here. Can I play one of these?
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to play the whole thing, but I'll play one of them here for you guys. You guys can hear this one. Welcome to the new media show. This gets kind of
Doing the
funny.
new media show again.
People are actually going to listen to this junk.
We do it live.
We're live right now.
We'll just do it live. We're going live. We're going live. We just can't get enough. The new media show.
Let's go.
Just do it live. We're going live. We're going live.
Bada bing, bada boom.
The new media show. We do it live. Just do it live. We're going live. We're going live. We're going live. The new media show. I'm like Adam Curry, and you're more like John C. Dvorak.
I think I am Adam Curry, and you're the old curmudgeon.
We do it.
Bill O'Reilly joins the new media show, screaming, "Do it live!"
Oh my gosh. So anyway, we haven't used too many of those today, so I thought I would just throw it out there. We did not get any comment from Cridlin. We didn't get any response from Tom Webster. We didn't get any.
Right.
Well, of course, Dan Franks didn't have his own promo until now.
Right.
And I
He's
don't.
got his own, yeah.
Oh, okay. So someone in the audience, how do I use Bank 2 in the sound pads? So I've uploaded stuff to Bank 2. How do I play the second banks in the Roadcaster? Someone's going to give me the answer.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to try it right now.
All right.
So, excuse me. There's a little soundbite that we got about Mr. Tom Webster. So, let me push my pad and see if it plays it. Hang on here.
Don't eat me, Tom Webster.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's the original one. There's a new
That's
one.
the original one.
Yeah, there's a new one.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Bank. Where's bank? I know there's bank, but how do I go to Bank 2?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out too. Okay, let me.
Because
Bank.
we've loaded stuff into Bank 2, and I don't know how to get to Bank 2. Music
Right.
note icon. What is that? Music note icon. Music note icon.
Don't eat me, Tom Webster.
Oh, that's the same one.
It
Music
is the
note icon.
Okay, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
Go-
So
go back to one, and drop this new one in there.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
don't see a.
All right.
Tom Webster had a great point. Huh? Wait, what? That phrase makes me nervous.
So, yeah.
That's one of the new ones.
But anyway, I don't know how we play. Hit the music note icon on the podcaster screen. Music note icon
Right.
on the Roadcaster screen. Oh, music note. Okay. And now I see how to do that. It's at the top. We got to be smarter than it's basically, Rob, you have to actually go into the settings. So right at the
You
top,
do?
yeah, right next to where your micro SD card is the music
Oh,
note.
it's that little
Yeah.
little music icon.
Yep, and
Right.
then you can change to bank 2 or bank 3. Aha.
Gotcha.
Got to be smart.
Right.
See, Mike Dell, he knew how to do that. Thank you, Mike.
So I'm going to play the new one for Dan Franks here. So Dan actually is going to come on the show next Wednesday. So he's
Is
going
it
to give
next
us an
Wednesday or
update.
the following Wednesday?
I think it's
Okay.
could be the following
All right.
Wednesday. Right. So here I'm going to play Dan's one. Dan's.
Dan Franks.
Talking about Mr. Danny Boy.
Dan Franks. We're talking about Dan Franks.
Yeah, baby.
All right, that's enough for non-topic playing of jingles here. So we definitely appreciate the jingles we have received. And
From Lee LePuke.
Rob, is that his, is that his real last name?
Yes, I think it is his real name. Yes. I think he has a fine name, Todd.
Okay, I'm just confused. I've never heard anybody with that last name before. Are we
it's
pronouncing?
French,
Is there?
right?
Are we pronouncing it wrong? Is
I
it
think
supposed to be
it's French,
Pouze?
It could be. Could be Lee Pajuk.
Yeah, maybe. So sorry, Lee. We're teasing on you here, but I'm honestly never heard that last name before. So, or how to, they don't know how to, because it almost sounds like I'm insulting you when
Well. We certainly don't want to do that.
No. But thank you for the jingles. We definitely appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We're feeling quite special here for the jingles. But Rob, we got 11 minutes before we got to go. What else? Not that there's anything happening in the podcasting space this week. My God, we picked a good time to go back to once a week.
Yeah, we did. Pile them in. Right. Well, I did see that the Infinite Dial was released down in Australia, and there's some interesting stats came out of that too. They were showing 30% of people driving around their cars are listening to podcasts.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's over from 25% just a year ago.
Yeah. So do you have access to that too, Todd? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Pod News article, of course.
Then let's see here. What's the other one where they talk about podcasts?
But I tell people are pissed off about Joe Rogan. There's a pretty nasty article about him. I think this is written by James. This title, it says, Spotify's drunk, stoned, transphobic conspiracy theorist Joe Rogan has told healthy 21-year-olds to not bother getting a coronavirus vaccine. So we'll link to a story of a Cody Lester, a healthy college student and baseball player at Colorado Mesa University, who died on April 8th last year after catching the virus. He was 21. So there's been an article that's come out on this too. Someone burned him pretty hard on a public posted blog post.
I think early on, Todd, there was a lot of speculation. I heard from those in the medium saying that they were counting the days of how long Joe was going to last at Spotify.
He's making any news is good news when it comes to a show.
But I was going to take it to another level and say maybe that's exactly what Spotify wants is controversy, because then that's going to drive attention.
Hey, Doug, if you want to knock something out for us, we are very open to any type of really cool, creative, fun thing Douglas Reed is asking in the chat room, do you guys want us to have anything? You want us to have something knocked out for you? Yeah, anytime. Any little fun jingle. You've been
Well, that
listening
and cover art too.
You've been listening to the show long enough, Doug, that you know our little memes on the show. So we'll just let your little creative geniuses do what they want to do.
Right. And Todd, podcast awareness in Australia, 12 plus, age 12 plus is went up. Looks like 4% from 2020 to 2021, just fairly consistent with what we've seen in the U.S. Thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
It looks like podcast awareness compared to the U.S. This is interesting. Did you see this, Todd?
I haven't looked at the actual report. I just read the headline.
Podcast awareness in the U.S. in 2021 is only 78%.
And what is it in Australia?
In Australia, it's 91.
Wow.
So, outside of the U.S., and I've been saying this for a while, is actually growing in per capita consumption even faster than in the U.S. So, growth is happening really fast outside of the U.S.
So without getting into any trouble here, 99% Invisible has been purchased.
Yeah,
and
by Spotify?
Sirius. Now,
Sirius.
I guess my days of measuring 99% Invisible is about over if they're going over to Sirius. But, and maybe, rightly so, because he deserves to be, well, not rightly so, but he deserves to be in a top 10 list somewhere.
Right.
This show will easily usurp some people in a top 10 list if they are submitted to be measured. This show does very, 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 very well from an audience
Mr.
standpoint.
Roman Mars, right?
Yeah. And but it's interesting here. No terms were given, but Roman Mars to give $1 million from the sale to support Radiotopia shows. Says PRX, 99% Invisible, started in 2010, initially crowdfunded on Kickstarter. So here's the challenge. Radiotopia, while they create a lot of great shows, he was the anchor over there.
Yeah.
And
he's been doing very, very well for many years now.
I know, but he's been the anchor. All the Radiotopia shows did not go to Sirius XM.
Well,
so
they're independent. A lot of them, right?
Right. That's my understanding. And if I'm wrong, someone let me know that. But I think that we'll see what happens with this, because my understanding is they used to do a similar type of NPR fundraiser every year to raise money. And I don't know if he took advertising, to be quite honest. I don't know. But he's one of the OGs of podcasting. So I think that I just think this is a huge deal for him. This is I hope he got as close to as much money as Rogan got. But I don't know if Sirius XM would have shelled that kind of cash out. But if he's going to give $1 million to,
I saw that. Yeah, he was donating $1 million, so he
must
got plenty.
He must have done well.
Right.
So yeah, this is really, really good, but we'll see those shows that didn't move, what happens.
Right.
I don't know. I hope the rest of those shows can stand. It's like a mall, right? In a mall, what happens in a mall? You lose the end cap, and the rest of the network, or it's like you lose the end cap, and then what happens? It isn't too long before the mall is empty. But
right.
they've got Ear Hustle. That's a big show. There's some big ones over here. So, who's going to end up being the linchpin for Radiotopia now? That's a good question. So, but I think there's several shows that are part of 99% Invisible that are coming as well. So there's not, because he has a couple of different articles of interest. And so we'll see what happens with this. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, a show like that, I'm not surprised it didn't get scooped up.
No, but what does that mean for Radiotopia?
Oh, as far as that platform?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anchor shows are pretty important to platforms.
Yeah.
Now, granted, those folks have a lot of platforms to work with, right? It's quite a mashup of brands that they have over there. So who knows? Maybe your Radiotopia doesn't survive as a separate brand.
Yeah, that's you don't ever want to wish ill upon someone, but that's got to be a big blow.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. I would agree.
But the good thing is Sirius didn't do what Spotify did. It's gonna remain free. It's still gonna be on all the distribution points.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot about what the plan is for that.
Have you tried the Spotify deal with sending a podcast over to be on Facebook? Have you tried that action?
I have not yet.
I did, and it didn't work. So I don't know if it's not rolled out or not, but I was able to share to my Facebook news feed, but I didn't get a player. I got a post, a news post, as if I was, and then when I clicked on the link, it took me back to the Spotify app. It didn't actually play on Facebook. So
you didn't embed a player.
It didn't embed a player when I tested it. So maybe it's just not implemented yet. So if anyone has seen a player get embedded back from on Facebook from Spotify, please let us know. But it didn't work for me when I tested. Now it's been ever since the announcement. I tested it on the day of the announcement, so maybe it just wasn't rolled out yet.
Well, many years ago, you used to be able to do that onto Facebook. You used to be able to get a player.
Yeah, we built one too, and
right.
Well, it was a trick. We had to put an MP4 file.
It was a hack.
Yeah, we had to put an MP4 file over there.
Yep.
And the problem is, as soon as you scrolled past the content, it quit playing. So what they did with Spotify is good in that you can keep on scrolling and it will keep on playing. So that in itself is good news.
Todd, I was just looking at the Infinite Dial study for Australia, and from 2020 to 2021, it's showing a 12% uptick in monthly podcast listening. 12% going from 25% to 37%.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's a huge jump.
It's huge, but
I mean that's a bigger jump in listening that I've seen any other country in the world.
Rob, do you understand how locked down Australians and New Zealand people are?
I know they can't travel, but they're also not, well,
they can't even, I don't know if they call them provinces or states.
Leave.
They can't even go from state to state right now without re-quarantining. I think that's in Australia. I think they call them states, not provinces.
Right.
So if I'm wrong, Australia, I apologize. But, essential travel wasn't even, you had to have essential travel just to travel within your own country. So,
But their COVID instances are very low. So, I mean, masks, from what I understand, aren't mandated there.
They've locked it down. So, no, as a matter of fact, I watched a couple of YouTube channels where people are down in Australia and no one's wearing masks. But
right. Yeah. So things are pretty much back to normal. It's just, it's the traveling.
Well, they've locked the borders. And I know someone from the UK. As a matter of fact, I did a call with a guy that is running a UK. It's basically, they're putting podcasts on the radio in the United Kingdom. And I apologize. He's probably listening to the show. I forget what the address of the website is, but they're playing playlist, a podcast on actual radio. And I had an appointment with him, and I had to mess up with my schedule. And he says, well, I'm on my way to New Zealand. I'm like, well, how in the hell are you getting into New Zealand? And long story short, I did a call with him Monday, and he's day 8 of his quarantine. So he's on a 2-week quarantine down there at an incredible cost, so just to get into the country. And because he's a New Zealand citizen, if he stays in the country for 90 days, New Zealand will pay for his hotel stay. If he leaves before 90 days, he has to pay for it. So, or reimbursed or whatever.
Wow.
But yeah, he's doing
Wow.
14 days quarantine. So
Wow.
yeah. So I'm not surprised that
Yeah, that's why
Australian
that-
podcast listening is up.
Right. And that's probably going to explain why we're not going to see Mr. James Cridlin at any events here anytime soon.
I don't know what the deal.
So-
Australia, I don't even think you can. At least in the United States, you can leave the country and go somewhere. You aren't
Right.
in Australia. It's like you got to have like a letter from the government to even like go international. You just can't go anywhere.
Right.
And again, I don't quote to be an expert in this, but that's my understanding. Oh.
Yeah. In weekly podcast listening, I was quoting monthly in the prior number that was up 12%. The weekly podcast listening is up basically what was it 9% on the weekly side, which is another huge
That's big.
increase.
It's big.
Yeah.
Well, we are here at the bottom of the hour.
Yep.
We are. And
Well, it was great to have Steve Wilson on. I know we've been wanting to have Steve Wilson on this show for, 10 years.
yeah. So I'm Todd at blueberry.com, of course,
Yeah.
at Geek News on Twitter.
I can be found on Twitter as well, at Rob Greenlee. And if you want to send me an email, you can send it to robg@libsyn.com. Happy to hear from you.
And we, of course, make sure you go to newmediashow.com, get subscribed to the podcast if you're not already, or follow the podcast if you're not already.
That's right. Follow.
Yeah.
So that's all been changed now in Apple. It says follow
it
now,
says
right?
follow, yep. And what we're going to do is we're heading out of here today. We're going to leave you with a little cool tones as we're closing out the show, as we're waiting for the stream to catch up to everything. Those of you that are listening via the audio podcast, you're going to miss the cool tones. Well, maybe I'll leave it in there. But all right, everybody, we'll see you next Wednesday here on the New Me Show. Everyone take care. We'll see you next time. Bye.